Hi, I'm Craig, and this is Crash Course Government and Politics. And today we're going to talk about what is, if you ask the general public, the most important part of politics: elections. If you ask me, it's hairstyles. Look at Martin Van Buren's sideburns. How could he not be elected? Americans are kind of obsessed with elections. I mean, when this was being recorded in early 2015, television news and the internet were already talking about who would be Democrat and Republican candidates for president in 2016. And many of the candidates have unofficially been campaigning for years. I've been campaigning. Your grandma's been campaigning. Presidential elections are exciting, and you can gamble on them. Is that legal? Can you gamble on them, Stan? And anyway, why we're so obsessed with them is a topic for another day. Right now, I'm going to tell you that the fixation on the presidential elections is wrong. But not because the president doesn't matter. No, today we're going to look at the elections of the people that are supposed to matter the most: Congress. Democrat and Republican candidates for president in 2016. Constitutionally, at least, Congress is the most important branch of government because it is the one that is supposed to be the most responsive to the people. One of the main reasons it's so responsive, at least in theory, is the frequency of elections. If a politician has to run for office often, he or she, because unlike the president, we have women serving in Congress, kind of has to pay attention to what the constituents want. A little bit. Maybe. By now, I'm sure that most of you memorized the Constitution, so you recognize that, despite their importance in the way we discuss politics, elections aren't really a big feature of the Constitution. Except, of course, for the ridiculously complex electoral college system for choosing the president, which we don't even want to think about for a few episodes. In fact, here's what the Constitution says about congressional elections in Article 1, Section 2.
The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states, and the electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature.
So the Constitution does establish that the entire House is up for election every 2 years, and 1/3 of the Senate is too, but mainly it leaves the scheduling and rules of elections up to the states. The actual rules of elections, like when the polls are open and where they actually are, as well as the registration requirements, are pretty much up to the states, subject to some federal election law. If you really want to know the rules in your state, I'm sure that someone at the Board of Elections will be happy to explain them to you. Really, you should give them a call. They're very lonely. In general, though, here's what we can say about American elections. First, stating the super obvious, in order to serve in Congress, you need to win an election. In the House of Representatives, each election district chooses a single representative, which is why we call them single-member districts. The number of districts is determined by the census, which happens every 10 years, and which means that elections ending in zeros are super important for reasons that I'll explain in greater detail in a future episode. It's because of gerrymandering. The Senate is much easier to figure out because both of the state senators are elected by the entire state. It's as if the state itself were a single district, which is true for states like Wyoming, which are so unpopulated as to have only one representative. Sometimes these elections are called at-large elections. Before the election ever happens, you need candidates. How candidates are chosen differs from state to state, but usually it has something to do with political parties, although it doesn't have to. Why are things so complicated? What we can say is that candidates, or at least good candidates, usually have certain characteristics. Sorry, America. First off, if you are going to run for office, you should have an unblemished record, free of, felony convictions or sex scandals, except maybe in Louisiana or New York. This might lead to some pretty bland candidates or people who are so calculating that they have no skeletons in their closet. But we Americans are a moral people and like our candidates to reflect our ideals rather than our reality. The second characteristic that a candidate must possess is the ability to raise money. Now, some candidates are billionaires and can finance their own campaigns, but most billionaires have better things to do: buying yachts, making even more money, building money forts, buying more yachts. So they don't have time to run for office, but most candidates get their money from their campaigns by asking for it. The ability to raise money is key, especially now, because running for office is expensive. Can I get a how expensive is it? How expensive is it? Well, so expensive that the price of elections continually rises, and in 2012, winners of House races spent nearly $2 million each. Senate winners spent more than $10 million. By the time this episode airs, I'm sure the numbers will be much higher, like a gajillion, billion, million. Money is important in winning an election, but even more important, statistically at least, is already being in Congress. Let's go to the thought bubble. The person holding an office who runs for that office again is called the incumbent and has a big advantage over any challenger. This is according to political scientists who, being almost as bad at naming things as historians, refer to this as incumbency advantage. There are a number of reasons why incumbents tend to hold on to their seats in Congress, if they want to. The first is a sitting congressman has a record to run on, which we hope includes some legislative accomplishments, although for the past few Congresses, these don't seem to matter. The record might include casework, which is providing direct services to constituents. This is usually done by congressional staffers and includes things like answering questions about how to get certain government benefits or writing recommendation letters to West Point. Congressmen can also provide jobs to constituents, which is usually a good way to get them to vote for you. These are either government jobs, kind of rare these days, called patronage, or indirect employment, through government contracts for programs within a congressman's district. These programs are called earmarks or pork barrel programs, and they are much less common now because Congress has decided not to use them anymore. Sort of. The second advantage that incumbents have is that they have a record of winning elections, which, if you think about it, is pretty obvious. Being a proven winner makes it easier for a congressman to raise money, which helps them win, and long-term incumbents tend to be more powerful in Congress, which makes it even easier for them to raise money and win. The Constitution gives incumbents one structural advantage, too. Each elected congressman is allowed $100,000 in free postage to send out election materials. This is called the franking privilege. It's not so clear how great an advantage this is in the age of the internet, but at least according to the book The Victory Lab, direct mail from candidates can be surprisingly effective. How real is this incumbency advantage? Well, if you look at the numbers, it seems pretty darn real. Over the past 60 years, almost 90% of members of the House of Representatives got reelected. The Senate has been more volatile, but even at the low point in 1980, more than 50% of sitting senators got to keep their jobs. Thanks, Thought Bubble. You're so great. So, those are some of the features of congressional elections. Now, if you'll permit me to get a little politically sciencey, I'd like to try to explain why elections are so important to the way that congressmen and senators do their jobs. In 1974, political scientist David Mayhew published a book in which he described something he called the electoral connection. This was the idea that congressmen were primarily motivated by the desire to get reelected, which intuitively makes a lot of sense, even though I'm not sure what evidence he had for this conclusion. He used to be able to get away with that kind of thing, I guess. Clearly, David may not hew to the rules of evidence. Pun. High five. Nope. Anyway, Mayhew's research methodology isn't as important as his idea itself because the electoral connection provides a framework for understanding congressmen's activities. Mayhew divided representatives' behavior and activities into three categories. The first is advertising. Congressmen work to develop their personal brands so that they are recognizable to voters. Al D'Amato used to be known in New York as Senator Pothole because he was able to bring home so much pork that he could actually fix New York's streets. Not by filling them with pork. Money, it's money. Remember pork barrel spending? The second activity is credit claiming. Congressmen get things done so that they can say they got them done. A lot of casework, and especially pork barrel spending, are done in the name of credit claiming. Related to credit claiming, but slightly different, is position taking. This means making a public judgmental statement on something likely to be of interest to voters. Senators can do this through filibusters. Representatives can't filibuster, but they can hold hearings. Publicly supporting a hearing is a way of associating yourself with an idea without having to actually try to pass legislation. And, of course, they can go on the TV, especially on Sunday talk shows. What's a TV? Who even watches TV? Now, the idea of the electoral connection doesn't explain every action a member of Congress takes. Sometimes they actually make laws to benefit the public good, or maybe solve problems. What an idea. But Mayhew's idea gives us a way of thinking about congressional activity, an analytical lens that connects what congressmen actually do with how most of us understand congressmen, through elections. So the next time you see a congressman calling for a hearing on a supposed horrible scandal, or read about a senator threatening to filibuster a policy that may have significant popular support, ask yourself, is this representative claiming credit or taking a position, and how will this build their brand? In other words, what's the electoral connection, and how will whatever they're doing help them get elected? This might feel a little cynical, but the reality is Mayhew's thesis often seems to fit with today's politics. Thanks for watching. See you next week. Vote for me. I'm on the TV. I'm not. I'm on YouTube. Crash Course Government and Politics is produced in association with PBS Digital Studios. Support for Crash Course U.S. Government comes from Vocal. Vocal supports nonprofits that use technology and media to advance social equity. Learn more about their mission and initiatives at vocal.org. Crash Course is made by all of these nice people. Thanks for watching. That guy isn't nice.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Whitfield. I'm the Democratic candidate running for United States Senate here in Arkansas to unseat and replace Senator John Boozman. And sorry that I did not do my live stream last night. My wife was feeling ill. She has a high fever. And of course, today I'm not feeling super great. That's why I'm wearing a t-shirt and not my normal shirt and tie. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So let's go ahead and work our way through this as quickly as possible. I don't have a whole lot to go through, but I have some important things to go through. So let's go ahead and start with COVID, because COVID is still there. As much as we wish that we could just get completely back to normal, to the way our lives were a year ago, more than a year ago, it is still there. We are at 94 new cases today. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. So yeah, today we are at 94 new cases, and our total fully immunized or completely vaccinated people are about 847,700, which only brings us to about 25% of our total population here in Arkansas, which is actually putting us at rank 49 of 50 out of the entire country on how many people are vaccinated. Now, it's extremely important that you get vaccinated, because studies have already shown that if you are vaccinated, you're less likely to spread the disease if you do get it. If you don't feel safe about taking it, talk to your doctor and get their medical opinion first. But we've got to get vaccinated. That way we can beat this virus and get to the point where we return to normal completely. The CDC has announced now that if you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask in public or indoors, which is really awesome. But again, only 25% of Arkansas is fully vaccinated. So realistically, we should be seeing about 3 out of 4 people wearing a mask, when unfortunately we're only seeing about 1 out of 10 people wearing a mask at this point. So do your part as part of the social contract. Take this deadly virus as serious as it is. Get vaccinated before you take your mask off. All right. So that's where we're at with COVID-19. There were just a couple brief little things I wanted to touch on, such as Steven Donziger. This guy actually was the lawyer for the people down in South America when Chevron had polluted an entire nation and caused tons of people to die, all the way to the point where we had Chevron, these oil companies, ExxonMobil, telling these indigenous people that, oh, it's okay that oil is in your drinking water. It's okay that, the food you're eating is living in these oil spills and oil messes, because oil has vitamins and minerals like milk. They actually told indigenous people that. So he actually represented these people, and he won a $9.5 billion judgment against Chevron. After he won the judgment against Chevron, unfortunately, Chevron purchased our judicial system, and they bought a judge, they bought lawyers, and they have been prosecuting him and persecuting him. And I just think that this is something that's very relevant for people to be paying attention to, keeping an eye on. The judge 5 hours ago, the judge essentially barred him from testifying in his own defense. This judge has taken financial contributions from the fossil fuel industry. It is just insane how corrupt this really is. And, make sure... Look at this. The judge was sat reading a newspaper during the trial, and even had a staffer leave and bring her a new newspaper. So she's obviously not interested. She's not being impartial at all. This is the first corporate prosecution that we've seen in the United States of America. So we do need to be paying attention to what is going on. All right, but that's as much as I'll talk about that right now, so we can get back to my normal update stuff. So my opponent, Senator John Boozman, has finally sponsored another bill. He doesn't do very much, but when he does, wow, it makes waves. So let's go ahead and see exactly what John Boozman is doing. So Senator John Boozman and Senator Tom Cotton have sponsored a bill to significantly reduce the estate taxes. They're claiming that this is going to help small family farmers, that this is going to help small businesses, this is going to help working class families. All of these other blatant lies that a lot of people just don't know our lives because they don't understand necessarily what the estate tax is. Now, number one, the estate tax is not going to affect you or your family unless the inheritance, what's left in the estate, is going to be more than $10 million. $10 million. You can't tell me small family businesses, small family farms have more than $10 million in assets that they're leaving onto their children when they pass. That's not why they're trying to pass this legislation. It's not to help the working class and families. It is for this reason right here, highlighted by Senator Bernie Sanders. The reason they want to repeal the estate tax: it will save the Walton family $88 billion. It will save Jeff Bezos $71 billion. Elon Musk, 65, Bill Gates, 50 billion, Mark Zuckerberg, 40 billion. And to the poorest 99.9% of Americans, it will be a savings of $0. Now, this isn't the first time Senator Tom Cotton has attacked the estate tax, and the GOP as well. And I just, a quick reminder, the Koch brothers did give Tom Cotton, they helped facilitate an $8.4 million contribution to Tom Cotton's campaign back in 2014, $8.4 million. So you would say, why would these billionaires help a candidate get $8.5 million to win a seat in the Senate in Arkansas? Why do they care about Arkansas in a Senate seat? Well, we saw back in, I think it was in 2017 when they had the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, all of the politicians that have taken money from the Koch brothers have voted on this tax cut. Now, what a lot of people didn't know about this tax cut, hidden way deep down in there, was a temporary repeal of the estate tax. A temporary repeal of the estate tax. Now, when one of the Koch brothers died in 2017, that meant that his wife was able to inherit $25 billion tax-free. It saved billions and billions and billions of dollars. I think it's somewhere around, like, I want to say 50%. Let's see, what is the current estate tax? 40%. Okay, so 40% of $25 billion is going to be somewhere over $10 billion. $10 billion the Koch brothers family was able to save through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, through a temporary repeal of the estate tax when they knew he was on his deathbed and he was sick and about to die. That's why they spent hundreds of millions of dollars helping candidates get elected back in 2016 to get that passed, to save over $10 billion. Now, this is just this is normal corruption that we're dealing with in our legislative branch. When we have lawmakers taking money from special interests and in return giving those special interests favors that actually hurt their constituents while helping those special interests. And now we're seeing that they're trying to, again, raise our taxes to make up for the trillions of dollars of tax cuts that they gave the billionaires at that time. So that is something Senator John Boozman is sponsoring with Senator Tom Cotton that I am 100% against. All right. Let me go ahead and close this real quick before we get to that. The next thing I wanted to talk about is a couple things happened last week. I went to Russ for Governor. He actually was hosting an Others Day event in Little Rock. So I went to that event and I gave a brief live stream kind of update, but I wasn't at home to give like a legitimate update. So I do want to iterate what we talked about last week. And the first thing about that was what our legislators, our state legislators, slipped into law before the end of the legislative session. Now, back in 2020, we should have had 6 ballot measures to be voted on during the November 3rd election. Now, 3 of those were citizen-created initiatives, and 3 of them were bills or laws created by our state legislators. And one of those laws created by the state legislators were was basically to make it harder for citizen-created initiatives to make it onto the ballot. They tried to make it so that people collecting signatures for petitions must be Arkansas residents, that rather than getting paid, say, $3 or $2 or whatever per signature, they have to be paid an hourly wage. That not only do they have to pass federal background checks, but federal and state background checks. They added misdemeanors to disqualifying factors for petitioners, including minor drug offenses. They tried to make it harder for us to get initiatives onto the ballot. And you know what? We voted against it because we, the people, want to have the ability to create citizen initiatives, get them onto the ballot to be voted on. Now, because this was voted against by the people, by Arkansans voters, our state legislators decided to take it into their own hands and pass that law themselves. So it is now harder to get ballot initiatives onto our ballots to be voted on. Another thing that they slipped in there was on top of making it harder for us to get an initiative onto the ballot. After it's on the ballot and we vote to make this initiative law, after we vote on it and it passes, our state legislative body now has to approve the initiative by a 60% majority vote. Otherwise, the law that we got signatures for, that we got on the ballot, that we voted to pass will not become law. So our state legislators have taken it out of our hands and putting it directly into theirs. I just think that this is very anti-democratic. I think it's absolutely terrible. And I really hope that one day these corrupt legislators will be able to be held accountable for their actions. All right. But that is one thing I wanted to talk about from then. And another thing that I wanted to talk about again that we talked about briefly was Asa Hutchinson. Asa Hutchinson decided to end federal unemployment benefits early. Federal unemployment benefits. So I'll read this real quick. Governor Asa Hutchinson has unilaterally chosen to deny 47,000 Arkansans money that was already federally allocated from the American Rescue Plan for Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. This has taken $141 million out of the hands of some of the most vulnerable Arkansans. He has stated that he plans to spend these funds on a program other than what the funds were federally allocated for. I don't know if that's legal, but I do not believe so. We'll have to look into that. I have filed a complaint with the Department of Justice because it is time we start holding these corrupt politicians accountable for the actions they take. Now, if you go to, let me go ahead and add this, add a text on here. Let me change the properties of this. I'm going to add a website here, a link to my website rather. You have to make it a little bit smaller. Hopefully y'all can see that. I'll put it against my black shirt there. It's danwithcongress.us/DOJ report. Now, if you go to this link, some of the things that are going to be on here are how to file a complaint. File your complaint at the link. All you have to do is click this link and it will bring you straight to the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division and straight to the report. All you have to do is click submit a report. So we're going to submit a report. It is going to ask for your contact information, name, last name, email address, phone number, mailing address, zip code, all of that stuff. You're going to go ahead and click next and just work your way through this process. It really doesn't take very long, but it's important that we do as Arkansans to help the Department of Justice look into these illegal activities of our state government. We have to start holding them accountable. And if our state ethics committee, who's in the pocket of our state government and the GOP, refuses to take any action, then we're going to have to bring the federal government into it to get action taken. So go to that link, use the above link to begin the process. Below is a template you can use and adjust the body of your statement. So uh, eventually it asks you for your comment, and you can just copy paste this and you can change it to your own words, change this template however you want. But there are some very important things in here. Further, Asa Hutchinson is violating the USC Title 18, Section 242, 241, and 245, as I consider a person filing for benefits under the American Rescue Plan a federally protected activity. So how would you feel if our state government said, you know what? We are going to cut off SNAP benefits. No more SNAP benefits for any Arkansan, even though it's a federally funded program. He can't do that. It's unconstitutional. And the same thing goes with this unemployment insurance. So make sure you check this out. Do your part. I filed my complaint. This is a copy of my complaint right here. You can even hit download PDF and it will download it for you. You can click it. And just read through it. And this is just, what is the primary, and this can help you as well while you're filing your report. What do I select? What do I do? What is your primary reason? Something else happened? No. Location, the address of the Capitol. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm not feeling super well. When did this happen? And here's your personal description. But this is here. So if you need a reference on what it needs to look like and what you can do when you get into the filing process. So this is something that I hope you will take a few minutes to do. It only takes a couple minutes. But if we can get enough people doing this, maybe we can return this $141 million to the hands of 47,000 Arkansan families that desperately need this money in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, especially when we're the lowest ranking in vaccines, we're the lowest ranking in income, we're one of the lowest in education, so many other things, healthcare. We've got to make sure we're taking care of the most vulnerable among us. All right, so let me go ahead and close my awesome window capture device there. All right, and we can go ahead and get this finished up. My volunteer coordinator has started reaching out to my volunteers. So if Miss Isabella reaches out to you, please let her know how you can help. Let her know what your specialty is, your availabilities, your location, and she's going to work on getting everybody organized so that we can start having an effective campaign. Senator John Boozman has been traveling the state these last few weeks, going to high schools, colleges, talking to students mostly, and excuse me. And that's really easy for him to do because he's actually getting paid by us right now. He's campaigning on our dollar. So he can go out during the week and campaign all week long. Well, unfortunately, I'm a working class Arkansan just like y'all. And I work Monday through Friday, so I can't do that. I can do my campaigning on the weekend. That's why we're going to start hitting all these events here this upcoming weekend and every weekend after. That's why we were in Little Rock last weekend. We were under the weather. I couldn't make it out tonight. I know there was a protest in Harrison. I'm sorry I couldn't make it, y'all. But we are going to start getting out there. So if she reaches out, please let her know how you can help. And the last thing is, of course, as always, donations are super important. We had a pretty decent week last week. You guys are awesome. I greatly appreciate y'all's support and how much y'all want change, because a donation isn't just a donation to this campaign to beat John Boozman, but it's an investment in your future and in your children's future. Because right now, we have such an extremely partisan, far right representative body, from Tom Cotton to John Boozman. They all vote 99% the same time, 99% of the time alike, the same. We have to make sure that we bring some balance to this equation. And by helping elect a Democrat who stands more moderate left, we can bring the extreme far right a little bit more to the center. And I think that that's really going to help and benefit the people of Arkansas. It's time that we start having the medical care that we deserve. It's time that we start having the internet infrastructure that people need. It's time that we finally get educational funding and stop trying to remove federal educational funding, because a teacher wants to teach something that may make us feel a little uncomfortable because of our personal ideology, even though it's the truth, it's fact, and it's history. There's just so many things that Arkansans deserve better of, and representation is one of them. And that's why I'm running for office, because we deserve better. We need balance, and we have to take our state and our government back from the special interests that have purchased it. I haven't really read any of the comments. I'm sorry. I've just been talking, y'all. Let's see here. Let me try to catch up real quick. Blue, I know I went to Walmart today. No one was wearing a mask. Fortunately, well, not fortunately, but my wife and I, we were able to do the to-go groceries. So we just do to-go, and they drop it off in our car. So we haven't really had to be in the stores lately. But I'm really saddened to hear that. I made kind of a joke on Twitter after the CDC said that if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. I was thinking, you know what? 25% of Arkansas is vaccinated, but I bet tomorrow it's going to seem like 90% is, because nobody's going to be wearing masks. And unfortunately, that joke is true. People just refuse to wear a mask. Let's see here. Yes, Liz, only 25%, 800, I think it was 70,000. 847,696 Arkansans have been fully immunized, and 15% of people who got the first dose of their vaccine did not return to take their second dose and skipped on it. Let's see here. In fact, estates with several pieces of properties. I'm not sure if it will affect estates with several pieces of properties. I'm not an expert on this field, but I feel like when you have an estate, the estate is all of that person's assets combined. What is my stance on Israel? Should we intervene or follow Biden? I'm definitely a Democrat, but Israel is not right, slaughtering women and children. Thank you so much, Ryan, for bringing that up. I was going to write that on my notes to talk about, but what is happening in Israel to the Palestinian people is an abomination. Transgender children aren't abominations, Mary Bentley. What Israel is doing to women and children in Israel, what the Israeli government is doing to women and children in Israel, to the Palestinians, that is an abomination. There is an ethnic cleansing taking place right this very moment. Bombs are dropping on residential neighborhoods right this very moment. Take a breath. Right now, the Israeli government is dropping mostly UK-made bombs funded by the United States of America on houses that they know have women and children inside, residential areas that have never had a reported Hamas member. It is an ethnic cleansing. It's a genocide, and it is absolutely terrible that United States politicians have decided to tweet and to take the stance of we stand with Israel. You know what? I understand the Israeli people want their land back. I understand this isn't all the doing of the Israeli people, that this is the dealings of the Israeli government. And what I also understand is that the Israeli government puts tens of millions of dollars into American politicians' pockets in the form of campaign contributions in exchange for the $3 to $4 billion per year of military aid that the United States gives Israel. Israel, honestly, is a bigger influence and interference in American elections than Russia ever was. They aren't just a group of 20 or 30 hackers or citizens, Russian civilians or citizens sharing memes on Facebook and Twitter. This is a government putting tens of millions of dollars into American politicians' pockets. And when 89% of the time the politician with more money wins an election, they are guilty of interfering with our elections. So I do not stand by what the Israeli government is doing to the people, to the Palestinian people. I, of course, am against the Hamas terrorists that are launching rockets at the Israeli people, and the Israeli people have every right to defend themselves from those rockets. What the Israeli people do not have a right to do is to bomb Associated Press, to bomb different news outlets, to bomb orphanages, hospitals, cemeteries, residential areas. That they don't have the right to do this. And every other nation in the world is saying they don't have the right to do this, except a few powerful nations that are taking huge bribes from the Israeli government. So I do not stand by what is happening. I am against the genocide of people. And honestly, I think we need severe economic sanctions against Israel until they decide to stop this genocide, stop the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. I've seen stolen land going into estates and wondering if they will be getting tax breaks. That's a very interesting question, and my wife, who's upstairs asleep and resting right now because she still doesn't feel well, probably knows the answer as a tax accountant to your question. So, what I'll do is let me go ahead and tag her in. You see, it's not going to let me tag from my page. When she wakes up, I'll ask her about that, Kristen. Let's do it. We really do deserve better, Megan, and that's why I won't give up on y'all. Yeah, me too, Patty. I'm fully vaccinated now, but I still wear a mask when I go out, especially if I can tell that someone around me doesn't feel comfortable. I think that it's extremely important that the people around us feel more comfortable. And if they don't know whether or not we're vaccinated because we're not carrying cards, then wearing a mask is a great way to let them know that, I care about your feelings and how you feel and your health. So personally, I'm still going to be wearing a mask unless I'm in an enclosed room with a group of people that specifically ask me not to, because they are all vaccinated as well as myself. What would you do to improve how law officers handle a situation involving colored disabled people? I think that's a very good question, especially because we have so many disabled people here in Arkansas. What would I do to improve how? I mean, this all just goes back to my law enforcement reform policy, danwhitcongress.us/policy or danforarkansas.com. Click on the policy tab or the issues tab, and you'll see how I break that down. And basically, for that specific question, I think a lot of the things that are going to be causing problems right now that we could solve would be a lot of de-escalation training. We need to make sure we actually are we're requiring our law enforcement officers to take more training than they currently are. The first thing an officer should do when they arrive on a scene is assess the situation and de-escalate the situation if possible. And unfortunately, we have too many law officers showing up just escalating situations and doing the opposite of what they should be doing. A lot of times they'll show up, hand on their gun, ready to make the person that they are investigating nervous. They're just not doing their job properly. So I think training will really help with that. But I mean, and of course, we also have to get rid of qualified immunity. That way, law enforcement officers have to they actually have consequences for their actions, because when someone doesn't have consequences for actions, they're more likely to take an action that they wouldn't do if they had a consequence. So that's another important thing that could help with that specific question. Yes. Yeah, we shouldn't be giving relief money out, in my opinion, to other countries. What we should be doing is giving vaccines out to other countries, giving medical equipment, sending doctors and specialists. why do people have channels? Let's see here. Are you still there? Bobbing? Nope. Okay. Awesome. So let's go ahead and wrap this up, I guess. I've already gone through everything. I've been attending some meetings, of course, Zoom meetings for different things these last couple weeks. I'm going to continue attending different Zoom meetings, of course, this upcoming week. And hopefully I'll be feeling better here soon. And within the next couple weeks, I'm going to be having a giant campaign announcement rally. Of course, y'all know I'm running. Everyone knows I'm running, but we haven't held an event yet because of COVID-19. So within the next few weeks, I'll be letting y'all know more details. We are going to most likely be in Fayetteville, maybe around the square. It'll be really cool. I will talk a little bit about my platform, why I'm running. I'll answer questions that y'all or the media and the press have. And I'll be looking forward to getting to meet so many wonderful people. So keep an eye on my social media pages these next couple weeks, and I'll get you a time and a date. And let's try to get as many people there as possible to show the GOP and the Republicans that the Democrats aren't going to roll over this time. We're going to take this seat for them, and we are going to bring balance to Arkansas by flipping Arkansas blue in 2022. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I truly, gratefully appreciate your support and all the help and the donations, the wonderful kind words and emails and messages y'all send me. Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll be better soon. My wife is starting to get better, so we'll be back on track here by this next weekend. So y'all have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the Sunday evening with your family. May God bless y'all. May God bless America, and may God bless Arkansas.